Welcome once again to our review of the Evolving Analyst book. And today I have Pragati Sinha as a guest. The title of her article in the book is Four Conversations Every BA Must Have. It's in the requirements elicitation of the book. And the thing I like about Pragati's article is that it focuses on how BAs can create very meaningful, very impactful communication, stakeholder collaboration, all of that in complex environments, complex organizational environments. So welcome to the show, Pragati.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm very happy to be here.
Glad to have you. We have a few questions for you. I've got a few questions for you. Let's start off with the most important one. You've got 4 points that you bring up in your article. What's the real
Mhm.
problem? How urgent is the problem? What's our appetite to fix this problem? And what did we decide and why? So, my question to you is why these four conversations specifically?
So I think this conversation, like the four pieces together, I think form the backbone of the logic that every business analyst needs before they do the thing we are all expected to do, which is to write requirements. So specifically, we all know about problem validation that we need to dig deep, think through the dimensions and depth of different problems. But often the other pieces that I point out, like the urgency, the appetite, and like the decision-making process, we kind of do it on a kind of surface level. So what I really want us to be aware of, or when I teach or mentor other BAs, I really want them to focus on these four buckets of information because I think this truly forms the backbone of what you need, the information that you need before you go into writing the requirements, the user stories, the acceptance criteria. So that's the crux of the matter.
Hmm. And which one of those do you think that BAs avoid the most?
I think it's the third thing that I point out, the appetite. So the reason for that, I think, is well, we do go into appetite as in like trying to understand our stakeholders priorities and constraints, but we don't have a forcing conversation around that. But by that I mean, if you are talking about appetite, sometimes we tend to think about appetite just in terms of the cost of building something, for example. So engineering costs, so will it take 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, which is great. That's a great start. But there is so much more to the appetite for making a change that we need to dig into. For example, if you look at the change management aspect of it, when you make a change, you're also causing a disruption. Do you have the appetite for the disruption? You are most likely going to be making a process change as part of, even let's say if you're doing a technology implementation, are you making time understanding the nuances of that? Do you have tolerance for it? Do you have the appetite for making that process change? And also, maybe thinking about trade offs. If you're doing, if you're buying apples, you're not buying oranges at the same time. So there are like different dimensions of appetite that we need to get into, or we should be getting into, but I don't think we do enough of it. And if you go through like different dimensions of appetite, I think you'll get more and better answers from your stakeholders, and you'll actually understand the nuances of the problem that they're facing a lot more, because then you'll get to understand, are they really looking for a real fix, or are they looking at just some sort of relief? And that means different things in terms of how we're going to solution the problem. So that's the one I think that's most nuanced that we need to understand as being.
So, we understand the nuances. It enables us to bring those nuances out more effectively. And how do those conversations change outcomes?
So the big one is it prevents false starts. So if you are having these four conversations, as in number one, you're trying to understand the problem. So you're taking all of the complaints and ideas and solution ideas, that you're pulling them apart and you're looking at the core problem. When you talk about urgency, you're not just saying, do you need this tomorrow or do you need this a year from now? You really get a sense of is it a truly urgent, time sensitive problem, or is it
Mm,
sort of like, an emotionally loud problem? Then appetite we talked about, and then decision making, like you kind of help them through a framework of what to decide, how to decide, when to decide.
mm,
So when you go through this process overall, I think you gather enough information about what's the true problem and how much your stakeholders are willing to put up with it, that then you have a good base for writing the requirements. So you're stopping a false start. Also, we all know as projects progress, there's a lot of scope that gets pushed in, and you deal with a fire hose of information. But if you're starting with this good base, then you already have like sort of like the set up to push back on things. You can tell them, well, when we talked about this was the appetite for solving this problem. So maybe trying to do all of these new things is not part of it. Your stakeholders
mm,
can push back, things might have changed, business might have progressed, but at the same time, you almost have like the tools and techniques ready to push back on things. You have the information ready to push back on things if you need to. So it helps stop scope creep. And most importantly, like, if you truly understand the nuances of the problem through this process, you're not going to be building elegant solutions to problems that, we
mm.
don't really understand, or weakly defined problems. So you're not over engineering stuff. You're not building stuff that's really not needed at the time. So I think it helps with, just in terms of keeping your focus on the scope.
Okay, so we've kept our focus on scope. You've got some pretty good experience and explanation on how that appetite formulates. And let's say you got the BA's got that solid technical experience, solid technical work behind them. Where do you think that communication breaks most often to derail good analysis? Like you've got that communication, you've got the good analysis, but somewhere along the line, that communication breakdowns most often derails good analysis.
Mhm.
Where? Any idea
I
about that?
So I think in my experience, it often happens when your stakeholders are sharing their request with you. And for us to stop and think the request is the problem
Mm,
is where things derail, because just because everybody agrees on the request does not mean everybody agrees on the problem to be solved, which means later on, once you have the solution in place, people are going to have different expectations, different
mm,
KPIs, which you may or may not be aware of when you were doing the requirements. So it's just, don't assume that because you understand the request that you also understand the problem. So
mm.
those are two different stories that you need to explore both sides of.
Yeah, that definitely comes up. What one person wants or thinks they want, and what the BA interprets it to be. So
Definitely.
it can be an issue. All right, say you're advising an early career BA. What communication habit would you encourage them to build first, and why?
So definitely asking questions. I think that's a no-brainer. But what I would add to that is um, keep on asking clarifying questions even after you get a reasonable answer.
Okay.
So if you feel like you have understood what the stakeholders have said and you're ready to document it, that's the point you stop and you ask one more question, because I have found every time when I have stopped at the most reasonable, sane answer that I've received, we are getting close to something, but we're not near it. So I would say
Right.
ask questions, but when you think you've reached that point where you understand, just ask one more. And then,
So
you know, just add one more question. After you get a reasonable answer from your stakeholder, ask one more clarifying questions before you close. And believe me, for me, like 7 out of 10 times, that has completely changed the trajectory of what we were talking about this whole time.
right.
So that would be my suggestion for every BA.
All right. So you got to add the most value when you're flexible, very people focused. You got to ask not just one question, but more questions. You got to be
Mhm.
outcome oriented while you're navigating that change, while you're navigating that uncertainty. And there's always change, there's always uncertainty on a project. So I like how it's all about going beyond techniques.
Mhm.
You have to have that degree of empathy. You've got to be able to clearly articulate what the problem is, what the intent is. And you need to be able to translate those diverse perspectives into very shared understanding so that everyone is on the same page.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, our main core and purpose is to be the org translator and like bring those silos together, as one for a project. So definitely agree with that. And I mean, especially with now AI coming into the picture, and then, being better at writing requirements or user stories, then some BAs are, that's what they say, but then requirement is a byproduct of good analysis. So whether you write user stories, whether you write, whatever format you use. So I think our value definitely has always been, but now I think we'll focus more on the fact that BAs can improve the quality of conversations that we have before we build something, as opposed to the quality of artifact, which is what our role had tended to become in the last couple of years. So I'm kind of excited, kind of nervous about the change, but I think we can definitely help with the quality of conversation as opposed to the quality of the art.
Every conversation, sorry, 4 conversations that every BA must have. Thank you very much, Pragati. That's the name of Pragati's article in the book. And thank you for being a guest on the show. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Marcus, and I really appreciate being part of the group and contributing to the book. Thank you for the opportunity and for doing everything you do for the business analysis community. So I
Thank
appreciate that.
you. Thank you. Couldn't have been done without all the authors coming together like yourself and giving us good content for good BAs out there. So thanks again once again for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.